Chapter 10. The Magic. Sara woke up before morning dawned. She had no idea how long she had slept. She was not quite sure what had awakened her, although she vaguely remembered hearing something, like the sound of her skylight clicking shut. At first, Sara did not open her eyes. She felt too sleepy. Curiously enough, she also felt warm and comfortable in her bed, for what seemed like the first time in her life in the attic. She was so warm and comfortable that she did not quite believe that she was really awake. "What a nice dream," she murmured. It must have been a dream. She could feel many warm blankets heaped upon her. When she put out her hand, she touched something exactly like a satin-covered down comforter. There was a light dancing before her closed eyelids, like the light from a merry little fire in the grate. Sara's eyes opened in spite of her best efforts to keep them shut, to prolong the dream. And then she actually smiled. For what she saw, she had never seen in her attic before. "Oh, I have not yet awakened," she whispered, daring to rise on her elbow and look all around her. "I am dreaming still." Spread on the floor before a blazing fire lay a thick red rug. On this rug, a folding chair, unfolded, supported a comfortable pillow. Next to the chair, a small folding table, also unfolded, held several covered serving dishes on a white cloth. There were cups, saucers, a teapot bubbling over the fire in the grate, and a lamp giving out soft light for reading under a rosy shade. Sara saw new blankets on her bed, and a silk robe and a pair of slippers waiting for her at the foot of the bed. Sara sat up. Her breathing came short and fast. "It does not melt away," she gasped. "I have never had such a dream before. I am dreaming. I am getting out of bed," she heard her own voice say. She stood up in the middle of her transformed room and walked slowly toward the fire in the grate. "I am dreaming, yet it stays real. The fire is really hot. It is bewitched, or I am bewitched." Sara touched the table, the dishes, the rug. She put on the dressing gown and slipped into her slippers. "These are real, too. It is all real, wonderfully real," she cried. I am not dreaming." Sara almost staggered to the books waiting for her on the cushion of the chair. She opened the one on top. Something was written inside the cover. Just a few words. "To the little girl in the attic. From a friend." Sara put her face down on the book and burst into tears. "I do not know who it is," she sobbed, "but somebody cares for me a little after all. I do have friends." 4 knocks on the wall brought Becky to Sara's room. Sara drew the speechless girl into the warm, glowing space. "It's true! It is true!" Sara reassured her friend. "I have touched everything. Everything you see is as real as we are. The magic has come and done this, Becky, while we are asleep. The magic that will not let those worst things ever quite happen." Imagine what the next hour was like. Becky and Sara knelt by the fire blazing in the grate. They removed the covers of the dishes and found rich, savory soup and sandwiches and muffins, enough for both of them. The tea was so delicious that it was unnecessary to pretend that it was anything else but tea. The 2 girls were finally warm and fully fed and happy. As sleep overpowered them, Sara gave Becky half the new blankets, and each girl retired to her bed to sleep for the short few hours before dawn. Becky turned as she left Sara's room and took one last look with devouring eyes. "If it ain't here in the morning, miss," she said, sighing. "It's been here tonight. Anyways, and I shall never forget it." The next morning, Sara hurried down to the kitchen. She had overslept a little, and so had not yet seen Becky that day. She found her friend in the scullery, scrubbing a kettle and humming a happy little tune to herself. Becky looked up at Sara with a wildly happy face. "They were there when I woke up, miss. The blankets, I mean," she whispered excitedly. "As real as they were last night." "So were mine," Sara crowed. It is all up there now, all of it. While I was dressing, I ate some of the cold things we left over." "Oh, laws, oh, laws!" Becky uttered the explanation in a sort of delighted groan. She ducked her head over her kettle just in time to hide her smile as the cook came in to send Sara out on the morning's errands. If it were possible for weather to be worse than it had been the day before, it was worse. Wetter, muddier, colder. There were more errands to be done. The cook was even more irritable. Knowing that Sara was in trouble with Miss Minchin made her meaner than ever. It was quite late when Sara was at last able to go upstairs to her room. She had spent some time in the schoolroom, studying after her workday had ended. When Sara reached the top flight of stairs and stood before the attic door, her heart beat rather fast. "Of course, all of it might have been taken away during the course of the day," she whispered, trying to be brave. "It might have been lent to me briefly, for just that one awful night, but it was indeed mine for a night. I had it. It was all real." Sara pushed open the door and went in. The magic had been there again. It had done even more than before. A lovely piece of heavy embroidered cloth covered the mantel. The bare, ugly walls had been covered with draperies and small pictures and made to look quite pretty. Brilliantly colored fans had been pinned up, and there were several large cushions, large enough to use as seats, scattered on the floor. Sara's old trunk had been covered with a thick rug, and some cushions had been placed on it to give it quite the air of a real sofa. Best of all, dinner for two was waiting for Sara and Becky in front of another merrily burning fire in the grate. "This is exactly like a fairy tale come true," Sara gasped. "There is not the least little bit of difference. I feel as if I might wish for anything, diamonds or bags of gold, and they would just appear. That would not be any more strange than what is happening right now. Is this my room? Am I the same cold, ragged, damp, and muddy Sara? And to think I used to wish there were fairies. I am living in a fairy story. Why, I might have become a fairy myself." Sara knocked on the wall for Becky, who almost dropped in a heap upon the floor when she arrived. "Oh, laws!" she cried. "Oh, laws, miss! Where does it all come from? Who does it, miss?" "Let us not even ask," Sara replied. "I would certainly like to thank whoever it is, but otherwise I would rather not know. It makes it all the more beautiful, don't you think?" From that time on, life for the two girls became more wonderful day by day. The fairy story continued. Almost every day, something new was added to Sara's room. A folding bookshelf filled with books, a writing case with pens and paper, new comforts and conveniences of all kinds, until there seemed nothing left to be desired. When Sara went downstairs in the morning, the remains of the previous evening's supper were on the table. When she returned to the attic at night, the magic had removed the dishes and left another nice meal. The comfort and happiness she and Becky enjoyed were making them stronger. Sara began to look less thin, and her eyes did not seem that much too big for her face any longer. Becky was beginning to look healthier and much happier, too. Then another mysterious thing happened. A delivery man came to the door and left several packages. All of them were addressed in large letters, "To the little girl in the right-hand attic." Sara had been sent to the door when the delivery man rang the bell. She was still looking in astonishment at the address labels on the parcels when Miss Minchin came into the front hall and found her. "Don't just stand there gawking," Miss Minchin said impatiently. "Take the packages to the young lady to whom they belong." "They belong to me," Sara replied, smiling. "To you? What on earth do you mean?" "I do not know where they came from, but they are addressed to me. I am the girl who sleeps in the right-hand attic room. Becky has the other one." "What is in the parcels?" "I do not know." "Well, open them then," Miss Minchin ordered. Sara did as she was told. Out trembled pretty and practical clothing, dresses, warm stockings, gloves, shoes, and a warm, long coat. There were even a nice hat and a sturdy umbrella. These items were all good and expensive, the clothes well made and perfectly tailored, just the right size for Sara. On the pocket of the coat was pinned a paper that said, "To be worn every day, will be replaced by others when necessary." Miss Minchin frowned. Could it be that she had made a mistake in believing Sara to be truly orphaned? Perhaps some relative had suddenly chosen to provide for Sara in this mysterious way. Relations were sometimes very odd, particularly rich old uncles who did not care to have young children near them. Such a person would not be pleased to find out the truth about the shabby clothes, the inadequate food, and the rough work Miss Minchin had provided for what she thought had been a charity case, hers to do with as she saw fit. "Well," said Miss Minchin uncertainly, "since the things have been sent, you may as well go put them on. After you are dressed, you may come down to the schoolroom. You need not go out on any more errands today." That night, after supper with Becky in her room, Sara sat looking at the fire. "Are you making up something in your head, miss?" Becky inquired respectfully. "No. I am wondering what I ought to do. I cannot help but think about our friends, the fairies," Sara explained. "If they want to keep their identity a secret, it would be impolite of us to try to find out who they are. But I do so want to let them know how grateful we are. Anyone who is kind and generous likes to hear that people have been made happy by such generosity. Benefactors care more for that than for being thanked. I do wish—" Sara paused as her eyes fell upon her writing case. "Oh," she continued, "why didn't I think of that before? I can write to them and leave my note on the table. Then perhaps the fairies who clear the supper dishes will take my note too. I will not ask them anything. They won't mind my writing, I feel sure." Sara wrote a note which said, "I hope you will not think me rude for writing this message, when you might wish to keep your identity secret. Please believe that I do not mean to be impolite. I do not seek to know anything at all about the magic. I only want to thank you for being so kind to me and to Becky. We used to be so lonely and cold and hungry, and now, oh, just think about what you have done for us. Thank you so very much. Your friend, the little girl in the attic."